Rick, a community regular who has an amazing collection, posted this recently on his Instagram. In fact, he's not the only one posting turnographs lately, and many of the people are actually asking for the turnograph's return in Rolex lineup. Sadly, I don't think Rolex is going to bring it back. Here's why. Here's a quick look back at what the Rolex Turn-O-Graph or Thunderbird was. The first Turnograph looked like this. It looks like a Submariner with an early oyster case. So early that it actually predates the sub. A year later, the Turnograph was moved to the Datejust collection with the Submariner carrying the Turnograph bezel thereafter. It still has the timing bezel, but it's now full metal with engine-turned surfaces. Since joining the Datejust family, it also gained the magnifying date aperture at the 3 o'clock position. Through the years, it had numerous iterations and evolutions. Then finally, in 2011, Rolex discontinued the Turnograph and is now only available in the secondary market. So why do people like it? Well, for starters, it's one of the last underappreciated sports models from Rolex. In fact, you could still get them for around $4,000 in the secondary market. This collection has a rich history as not just predating the sub, but it also predates the GMT Master and Explorer. This, effectively, is the first tool watch from Rolex. Another first is that this is one of the first two-tone Rolexes ever sold by the brand. This is also one of the few Rolex models that's officially used by the military, mainly the US Thunderbirds. Hence its nickname, the Thunderbird. They even had their emblem on the dial, and it also helps that it's actually a cool name. It's a great looking watch too, with its popping red seconds hand, that arresting date color, and the gorgeous white gold bezel. Finally, it's one of the only models of Rolex that's ever released with limited variants, namely the Japanese market Turnograph, which had this green seconds hand. With such a rich history behind it, why won't Rolex bring back the Turnograph, especially now that Rolex sports models are selling faster than Ariana Grande tickets? Let's go back to the design board. When considering product design, as much as history is considered, one must also keep in mind the current collection. Today, the sub has a lock over the non-date black bezel design, so the Turnograph can't return to the spirit of the first model. Although I must admit, it's kinda cool to see a crown guardless Submariner under the subcategory of the Turnograph, like you could see here in my concept. Rolex can't just bring it back together with the fluted Datejust as well, because it just looks too similar. For all we know, this may be the reason why it's discontinued in the first place, because it wanders in between these two design directions. So is there a reason to bring back the Turnograph? Yes, of course, there's a lot of reasons. Great heritage, actual pleasing aesthetics, and the demand for steel sports watches. But are these reason enough for Rolex to produce the Turnograph again? Likely not. Going back to its aesthetics, it looks a lot like the Datejust, but it has this toolish nature to it. This conflicts with Rolex's positioning of the Datejust as a dressier, classier watch. On the other end of the spectrum, would people buy a fancier version of the Submariner that's outside the precious metal variants and with a bi-directional bezel? Oh, wait, that actually already exists. So the Turnograph is an example of a brand cleaning up its offerings to better define its categories. That's a bold move, seeing how much heritage Rolex is giving up here by taking the Thunderbird out of its shelves. Like it makes a difference anyway, seeing how Rolex fills its shelves nowadays. I actually like the Turnograph, but unless it's going to be a significant redesign or if there's enough demand for it, I don't think it's going to come back. Now, if you want to see some speculation about what Rolex might come up with this year, click on this video here.